3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Welcome to the DFP Community Podcast, brought to you by Documentary Family Photographers Worldwide, DFP for short. I'm your host, Heather Whitten. If you're a fan of real, raw, and beautiful moments captured through the lens of family photographers from across the globe, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about showcasing the incredible work of everyday documentary family photographers you might not have heard of yet. Each episode will dive into the stories behind their photography, explore their unique projects, and get to know the people behind the camera. We're here to celebrate their journeys, encourage connection, and remind you that the world is full of inspiring photographers you can learn from and reach out to. So whether you're a seasoned pro, an aspiring photographer, or just someone who loves a good family story, get ready to be inspired, empowered, and connected. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. This is Heather Whitten here. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm here with Anna Longworth. She is a photographer based in Central Illinois. Her photographic value of truth-telling tends to draw her to families, wedding, and events. Her hopes to gain a mutual trust with clients that allows them to be vulnerable enough to be photographed just as they are. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
You started working as a photographer out of high school. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you started at such a young age?
Sure. So, I was always interested in art growing up. In high school, I was one of those students that didn't love school. And I was in search of, I was a little angsty. I was in search of the meaning of things. And so naturally I was drawn to art. And at my high school, I grew up in a very small town. My high school, there were 100 kids in my class. But they offered something where you could go to school for half the day and then go to work for the last half of the day. And it was counted as class or school credit. And so I got a job with a local photographer. And so after fourth hour, I would go out there and I did a lot of editing for her. So I would go to photo shoots. She had a studio. And so I learned a lot about interacting with clients that way and then editing. And this was back in 2009, I believe. So it was like before Lightroom was even a thing. So editing was a little different back then, but, I still learned a lot and loved it. And after high school, during high school, I was taking photos. Facebook was kind of like becoming more popular at that time. And so friends and I would go take photos. And we would just like drive around and find spots. And there was this one spot in my tiny town specifically. I think it was like a junkyard that belonged to a construction company. And there were old cars and like busted windows and just cool old stuff that, doesn't really look incredible to maybe everyone, but paired with a person next to it, it looks cool in a photo. So I would do that and then post them on the internet. And then other people at school would be like, hey, can you take photos of me too? And then it just kind of developed into like, oh, my mom said like she will pay you to do my senior pictures and stuff like that. And so I kind of started a little business. And then after high school, I wasn't really stoked about college. I knew I wanted to be a photographer. I would have been a first gen college student. So I went for one semester, to a university in Southern Illinois University, and, hated it. And it's no shade to SIUC or anything. It just wasn't for me. And I moved home after that and just started taking clients. And honestly, I think the timing was really lucky for me because it was like the age of social media where there were no paid ads. There was no like algorithm. It was just the people you were friends with saw what you posted. And then, I tagged those people and whatever. And so I kind of got a name for myself in my community as a photographer. And so I just continued on, and it's taken lots of paths, different, genres of photography since then, but that's what I've been doing.
I love that so much. How do you think you found your voice along the way as a photographer?
So what always drew me to photography was helping people express themselves. And so natural, I think for people who start taking photos of people, there's a natural movement toward weddings because one, it's a way that it's more profitable. But also just, people are looking for a photographer and that's a pretty common event that comes up. And so it's kind of funny. I think I was maybe 18, 19 years old when I photographed my first wedding. And looking back, that is crazy to me because I'm the kind of person that I feel I need to feel like I can relate to the person somewhat and able to be able to effectively photograph them. So, for example, when I did not have a kid, many years, like let's say 5 years ago, if someone asked me to do newborn photos, usually I would say that I'm not very comfortable doing those because I've never handled a newborn and I don't want to do you a disservice and would recommend someone else who does have more experience. Um, Whereas now I do have a child and I love photographing newborns with their families and such. So, I can't believe I did weddings back then. I can't believe people trusted me to do them, but I did. And I got really burnt out because I I was young and I thought I had to do what social media tells us we need to do, which is all the posed shots. And I remember going to a coffee shop like an hour before I had to be at a wedding. And I would be on Pinterest looking up poses, and it just like made me miserable. And I would get to the wedding, and I absolutely loved just like the documenting part of it, like the getting ready. I'm not posing people. And I dreaded that like hour that so many people used to, and some still do, but would put aside for posed portraits. And I would get so anxious for that part. And I think that's what burned me out because I hated having to tell people what to do, which in hindsight, I didn't have to do that. But I think a lot of people expect that and still do expect that. Um, and so after a lot of reflection, I decided to take a break from weddings. And that kind of led me into this strange position where I got hired as an independent contractor for the sandwich company Jimmy John's. If you've heard of them, I
Hmm.
know they're not on the East Coast as much, but I base my job for 5 years. They basically said, "Hey, we will pay you a salary to stop shooting weddings so that you're more available to do this job," which was basically create content for their Instagram page. Which looking back is so funny because social media is so different now. So I kind of had like a 5 year break from weddings. I would do one every once in a while or some courthouse weddings, but I had those 5 years where I was just shooting photos of sandwiches and I would travel. So it was like, hey, we want photos of our people hanging out on the beach with our sandwiches to post for spring break. Go to Florida and do that. So it was, I mean, it was really a fun opportunity. I'm grateful for it, but through all of that, I realized it wasn't fulfilling to me because I value telling the story of humanity and I didn't really want to make photos for the sole purpose of selling things. Um, and Jimmy John's is a different type of corporation than, say, a smaller business. So I thought, hey, mate, when the pandemic, okay, let me back up. So that company, Jimmy John's, sold to a larger corporation, and a lot of their staff moved to Georgia, and it was like a really good split because I was already feeling morally conflicted with using my photography skills to for marketing purposes. And so I was thinking of trickling back into weddings. And in the meantime, every fall, families that I had photographed before would ask for photos and I would do those. Um, and I started trying to do them with a more documentary mindset. So less posing. So I thought, what do I not like about photography? Well, I don't like posing people. And I remember when I was younger, it sounds silly now because I was just like young and angsty, but I remember saying, I hate like telling people to smile when they might not even be happy.
Mhm.
And a little less angsty now, but kind of the gist of that remains true. I don't want to tell people to do something that may not feel natural to them. So that's where my passion for documentary style shooting came in. Um, and so it kind of aligned. I stopped doing the Jimmy John's job, and then I don't know if you've heard of All You Witness. Have you heard of that? Okay.
No.
It was started by some four photographers that were based in Kansas City. The Parsons and I'm trying to remember their names. Their business name is oh, I'll have to back up and remember. But anyway, amazing people hosted this workshop, and it wasn't like a typical photography workshop. It wasn't like no one brought their cameras. It wasn't about styled shoots. It was none of that. It was all about like the ethics behind wedding photography and how it's such a sacred day that we are like we have the honor of being a part of. Like not just anyone can go be in the midst of such a sacred day and get to witness and document what's happening. And how dare we inject ourselves into these people's lives who have had a budding relationship for years and years, parents, family members, friends, who am I to go in and tell them what to do? And so that was a really good breath of fresh air and kind of made me feel like, oh, wow, I don't have to keep shooting the way that I thought I had to shoot. I thought being a wedding photographer meant that after the ceremony, everyone goes and takes portraits and flops the veil in the wind and all these things that make beautiful photos for like a magazine, but may not mean anything to the couple in a decade or even a few years.
Right.
So, that really that was really life changing for me. And I feel like a lot of that was inside me, but hearing it and seeing what they were teaching and saying, wow, it doesn't have to be this way, really changed the way I look at photos, as well as even family photos. Because the same goes, I mean, it's a little different. With family photography, it's like you're showing up for the sole purpose of taking photos. So it's a little different than a wedding because a wedding is going to happen whether there's a photographer there or not. Um, so that's a very long-winded answer of how I kind of found my voice in photography.
No, it's wonderful. And what do you think having ethics, you spoke a little bit to that earlier, but having ethics in documentary photography means to you?
Sure. So, I'm trying to think of a way to relate this to both weddings and family photos. So, when it comes to weddings, I think that a big part is just not injecting myself and trusting the process to just let it happen and trusting that, whatever happens is enough because my job is not to make it look better than it is or make it look a certain way. It's simply to document it as it's happening. So if a mother and a daughter are having a moment in this dark corner of a room, I'm not going to go interrupt them and say, hey, can you like have this really sentimental, sweet moment over again in this nice light? Because that just totally throws off the vibe. So I go back and forth between wanting to call myself a fly on the wall and not, because in a way I do want to be on a fly on the wall. But at the same time, I'm not a fly on the wall. I'm a real human who's physically there. So I think it's more about creating an environment that is accepting and, you don't need to impress me. There's nothing you need to do for me. Like the amount of times at a wedding where someone, whether it's the people getting married or the wedding party or a parent, to say, okay, now what do you need me to do? Or what should I do? And in my answer, I've tried to I just calmly say, like, you don't need to do anything for me. You can just live your life. I'm just here to take photos of what's happening. So I think that there is, like with family photography, obviously this whole podcast is about documentary family photography. So it's awesome that there's a lot of people that are starting to be like, oh, we don't have to do these like staged things. We can just live our life and that's enough. So my ethics with wedding photography are very much like, what would happen if I wasn't there? Do I need to speak up or not? And I know there is a gray area, which is hard for me. It's sometimes challenging for me to figure out when I should interject. So, for example, if someone is clearly feeling really awkward, it might benefit them for me to kind of say, well, maybe if you just turn this way, or people are like, what do I do with my hands? I'm not going to be like, just, I'm just here to document. Like, then I will step in a little bit, and I call it gentle direction. So I'm not going to let you sit there with your hands being awkward. I'll help you out a little. But when it comes to families, I feel similarly. Of course, like I mentioned, it's not the same as weddings because we're all there for the purpose of taking family photos. Um, but I try to not tell people what to do so much. And something that's really helped me is telling people straight up beforehand what to expect. So when someone inquires, I say, hey, I'd love to take your photos, but before I go further, I just want to explain to you my shooting process and make sure that aligns with what you're wanting. Because if you're wanting, like, studio portraits, I don't have a studio, so that's not possible anyway, but, more posed, all smiling at the camera, I'm probably not the best photographer, but I let them know I do everyone's smiling at the camera, usually at the beginning to kind of get it out of the way. Not that it's not important, but I feel like it's something everyone knows how to do. You look at the camera, you smile, and then everyone kind of loosen up. And then after that, I encourage people to just interact. It's a lot easier with kids because kids just play and the parents will play with them, but kind of just let them do their own thing and quietly follow them around. Um, yeah, so that's how I feel about the ethics of photography. I don't love to ask people to like, be publicly affectionate or something unless they're naturally doing that. So like for example, I had an engagement session the other day, which I don't do a ton of. Engagement sessions are tricky for me because it's harder for me than a wedding because there is some sort of posing involved. Like, and I don't love posing people, and I tell them that straight up, but sometimes people do still, or they're like, what do we do if there's not an activity? So I try to encourage people to have an activity, like whether you want to go to your favorite coffee shop or whatnot. But anyway, they like had a cute short little kiss, and I knew that I missed it, and so I said, if you want a photo of that, if you wouldn't mind doing that again, I will take a photo. Like, sorry, I missed it. But outside of that, I try not to ask people to repeat things.
Right.
I get it or I don't. I don't want to mess up the vibe. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel about ethics. I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely. Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. What character trait would you say all of your clients have in common?
ooh, that's a good question. What character trait? Hmm. I would say a lot of my clients believe that imperfection, they kind of embrace imperfection, which I think is awesome. And it hasn't always been that way, but I think the biggest game changer for me is telling people my style ahead of time. So, I think what I try to post are imperfect moments and not really like smiling at the camera moments. And people see those and think, oh, wow, like, not everyone looking at the camera isn't a bad thing.
Right.
Um, the other day I had a family and I think they may have been a little less aware of the idea of documentary photography. And I did their session in two parts because of some reasons. But um the first half, someone wasn't there because I couldn't be there. And so I edited those and gave it to them before the second half. And I loved how pouty the little son was. He's like a year and a half old and he just had this pouty lip. And I thought it was so sweet. And I said that. And I think that one of the family members was like, yeah, he doesn't really smile well for the camera. I'm like, that's okay. I don't really expect him to because he's 1.5 and I'm a stranger. So it's probably a good thing he's not like just,
Yeah.
so eager to smile for me. And kids are like that sometimes. So I loved that he had the pouty lips.
It's so like it's such a testament to this type of work too because we want to capture them exactly how they are at this point in their life.
Yeah.
And like you said, like an image that might be good for a magazine but won't mean anything to the parent or the family like 10 years down the road, like they're going to remember their son being like that pouty 1.5-year-old, and
Yeah.
that's going to mean something to them. So yeah, you're doing your job great, you know, like you're doing exactly what this approach to photography is meant to be.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you've been photographing weddings for a while now. How long has it been? And what does a wedding day look like with your approach to photography?
So I believe my first wedding was in 2012 or 13. I can't remember
Wow.
at the moment. So, and that was one of my high school teachers.
Oh, wow.
Um, which is awesome. But so back then it was the approach where I was like really nervous, like have to get a certain amount of portraits or else I'm not accomplishing the day.
Mm-hmm.
And but I always, it's not like I only did that because I thought I had to. I thought that's what made the mark of a successful wedding day as a photographer. And I look back and I know that I still captured a lot of those genuine moments that happened without any of my input. And those remain my favorite and
Mm-hmm.
probably their favorites too. But now that I feel empowered to not worry about portraits, it's like, oh, we didn't take any time for portraits because you were too busy having fun on your wedding day with your family and friends. Awesome. I promise that the photos I get of you having fun that you may not even know I'm taking are going to be more meaningful than us taking you away and going out into a field for 15 minutes or, longer and getting those perfect golden hour shots. Because what's
Yeah.
the point of those if it's taking away from your very limited time on your wedding day? And in an example, I'll give a quick example and then go through my day as a wedding photographer. I had a wedding and I have struggled with working with some videographers in the past just because our styles don't necessarily align. So I was working at a wedding and there was a videographer who had an agenda. They knew what they wanted. They knew what they had to get to fulfill their idea of a successful wedding video. Doesn't make them bad people. We just have different styles. And so I go in thinking I don't have preconceived notions. I don't have an agenda. My job is to witness what's happening. Whatever happens is good. And they really wanted the couple to go outside for some golden hour shots while they were dancing at the reception.
Mm-hmm.
And they said to me, like, we should probably go get them for golden hour shots, right? And I said, I'm not gonna, they told me that if the moment comes up, great, but if they're having a good time, they're not gonna step away. And they kind of looked shocked, and I saw them go up to the couple and say, do you guys want to go out? It's about, 8 o'clock or whatever it was during the summer when the sun goes down. And I saw them be like, no, we're not doing that. And so it really is a testament to um, not having an agenda is, I believe, more beneficial to the couple unless they're a couple that's like, hey, no matter what, make sure we go outside and get these, which in that case, they probably wouldn't hire me. But for me, what a day looks like. Ahead of time, we have a meeting and chat about their day. Would love to meet in person. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way if we live further away. And discuss their values, and they know ahead of time that I'm not going to do a whole lot of posing. But I do like to ask, if there's a long list of family photos, would you mind writing out the groupings so that you don't have to worry about it when we take family photos and I can just have it in my back pocket and check them off as we go? Because as much as I believe in the documentary style, I totally understand and think it's great to have, a portrait, just everyone, whoever's there that you want documented as a family, take the picture. And, whether your grandma wants that photo or you want that photo, just we'll knock it out. It doesn't have to take a long time. And so that portion, usually I try to make that be 15 minutes or less. But anyway, the beginning of the day, I just go in, meet partner one, take some photos. If partner two wants anything documented, I'll either drive over or walk over to where they are. I try to cover as much ground as I can. Um, and then during the ceremony, I usually start at the beginning of the aisle and get everyone coming down the aisle, and then I kind of bounce around all over, and I'm switching lenses and all that good stuff. And then usually family photos will happen after the ceremony, sometimes before. The reception is truly the most documentary part of the whole wedding day, usually for me, because there's so many things happening and no one's paying attention to me, which is where I thrive.
Yeah.
I always joke that if I could have a superpower, it would hands down be invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so yeah, that's kind of the gist of a wedding day for me.
I love it. How do you feel the way that you photograph challenges the norms of the wedding industry?
I think the way that I photograph weddings challenge the norms because it leaves room for nuance. So there's so many things that happen at a wedding day that aren't planned. And if I have a shot list, I may be so consumed with getting those shots that I miss something spontaneous that happens. Um, and there's examples of this at every wedding, but I think that what my forward facing look of my business is I try to only post photos that are pretty candid. Every once in a while I have some portraits, but I make note that like, you know, these I don't usually post portraits, but these are special because, you know, the person made the dress or whatever. I try to only post portraits if there's a reason, not just like, hey, look, here's a pretty photo that looks like it could be in a magazine, but doesn't really say much about the people who are in it. So I try to only show photos that um, are more documentary style and tell a story about who's in the photo. So whether that's, you know, for example, I recently posted a collection of hands specifically of a grandmother at a specific wedding. Um, and just the grandma's, there's so many it's not like I went into this day being like, I'm going to photograph the grandmother's hands, but there were so many times where the grandmother's hands were just like so present and I saw them and I'm like, I need a photo of that. And so by the end of the day, I had this nice collection of different moments that the grandmother had her hands, whether she was holding a sign that said, you know, because her daughter had passed away, the groom's mother. And so she had a sign that said like this seat is for the groom's mother who's in heaven. And then like her hugging her grandson and little things like that. I think that if I were paying attention to the normal shot list, like I think one of my least favorite things is when photographers ask a, you know, groom to readjust their tie for no reason. Like it's already on. They're like, just act like you're adjusting your tie. And I really don't love that at all because why? That would never happen in real life. The tie's already on. Why not just let whatever's happening happen? And in little moments like that, I think it challenges the status quo. Um, and just letting people be themselves and simply saying like, I don't need anything from you. Because I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's always shocking how many people look to me on a wedding day and say either, oh, sorry, because they got in the way. And I'm like, you're not in the way. You're a part of this wedding day. It's really okay. I have no agenda here. I'm just here to document you're part of the wedding day. So you're just as allowed as anyone to be in these photos. Or look at me and say, what should I do? Or I've heard people say, oh, I need to like look candid or I need to redo that. Well, you don't need to do that, I promise.
Yeah.
So yeah, and sometimes I find myself like I have to check myself constantly. Like for example, if an area is a mess, my natural inclination may be, okay, I need to just like clean up the coffee cups a little. But then I try to challenge myself, like, if I move those coffee cups, it may look more aesthetically pleasing on an Instagram post, but what if those coffee cups have some sort of meaning to the couple? What if they're like, oh, that's our favorite coffee shop and that's where we got coffee in the morning and we want to remember that? Or, oh, I can see what I ordered. I like to remember what I ordered on the morning of our wedding day. You know, something like that. That may not be a thing. And some people may be like, why didn't you move those coffee cups? But I like to err on the side of me not touching stuff and moving stuff is almost always better than me, you know, putting myself in there and making it something it wasn't originally.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like in 20 years, when they look back, it'll be those little details that they're scrutinizing, or not scrutinizing, that's a negative word, but they're picking over, oh, look at those coffee cups. Do you remember that coffee shop that we used to always
Yeah,
go to? And coffee cups might not even be a thing in 20 years. Who knows?
right.
Like you can
Yeah,
never know. So I think leaving those little details in is so important and magical.
yeah.
Um, and I love what you said in your questionnaire to me. The quote was, trends come and go, but the only thing that never goes out of fashion is telling the truth. And I think that you've already spoken to that so much. I was going to have you expand on it. And if you want to, you can. But I just loved that and wanted that to be a part of the show today.
Thank you.
Because I think it's so true, like in the wedding photography or the wedding industry, it's aesthetic over everything, it seems like.
Hmm.
And you're really doing work that pushes those boundaries. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And are you a full-time photographer now? Like,
Yes.
yes, wonderful. And what are some of the ways that you're supplementing your income as a full-time photographer?
So, my it's been an interesting adjustment the last couple of years because I have an almost 2-year-old who is not in any sort of childcare. We have family help, which is amazing. So, and he goes somewhere a couple hours every couple of days. So but my husband and I both work from home. And so I've found myself, I don't always work like a typical full-time schedule. A lot of the time it's like, oh, I'll take our son Oso and go play at the park, which I'm
Mm.
so grateful and blessed to have the like privilege to go do that. It oftentimes means I'm working from when he goes to bed to when I'm going to bed. But it won't be like this forever, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it's definitely been hard. And last year I really cut back on my work because I had him last year. And so this year was kind of my like comeback year. Okay, I'm a mother, but I'm also a photographer and I'm going to keep working. And honestly, I think I took on a little too much this year because I'm burnt out in a different I don't want to say I'm burnt out. I feel grateful. I feel more grateful than burnt out that I've been able to tell these stories, but I don't feel the burnout I used to feel when I wasn't really shooting the way that felt fulfilling to me. Um, but as far as supplementing, I I do a lot of work for we I live in Champaign, Illinois, and the University of Illinois is here. And so we have this awesome performing arts center here called Crayon Art Center for the Performing Arts. And I partner with them pretty often, I would say a couple times a month usually, to photograph an event of theirs, whether it's for their own marketing material or just to document the event. And I really love doing those things because it is purely documentary. There's no time where I would go up to anyone and ask them to do anything, which is awesome. And then the university also, like, there's so many areas of the university that need photos, and there's only a handful of photographers employed by the university. So, being able to be a contractor has been great because I can do different jobs in different sectors, whether it's like engineering or someone needs headshots. I won't lie, I don't love doing headshots. They're pretty easy, not my passion, but it's a easy way to make money because I'm not like I can't make as much money as I need to continue our family lifestyle by just doing, say, family photos. Um and so weddings really help that, of course. But moving forward, I'm a little undecided on how next year's going to look because admittedly, I only have I think 2 weddings booked right now for next year, which is kind of weird. And some of my photographer friends I've talked to also feel that, like, don't have a ton of bookings for next year. And I feel like the lead time has become shorter post COVID. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but it used to be like a year in advance plus people reach out. And I found a lot more like 8 months or less um, in the recent years. But yeah, I think I'm going to take fewer weddings next year just because I need a better work-life balance. And as you know, the editing that goes with that is a lot. Um, so yeah, I supplement with some of those things, such as headshots for businesses. Not my passion, but I'm happy to do it. And, I, it's a, good way to keep doing photography without having to go get another job that will require certain hours for me to be away.
Yeah, definitely. And you also help operate a analog film lab. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So they're in my small town of Champaign-Urbana. Champaign-Urbana, they're kind of like sister cities, like
Mhm.
Minneapolis, St. Paul, but, way smaller.
Mhm.
Not way smaller, but smaller nonetheless. And so Champaign-Urbana, two communities that are pretty much one. And in Urbana, there used to be a newspaper called The Courier, and it's in this old building. The Courier dates back to the late 1800s, and upstairs in this rickety old building, there's that's where the photography department was for the newspaper, and the dark room was locked up for decades. And my friend, Leosha, his name's Leosha Spinarski, he founded Urbana Museum of Photography. I think he's about to be 67 years old. He moved here from Russia in 1989. He has an amazing story, but he took photos while he was in Russia, and then he moved to America with his wife and son and didn't know any English, but always kept and just worked different jobs, odd jobs, learned English on his own, made a way for himself, bought a house, and always kept his passion for analog photography specifically. And he worked at a lab before digital photography. There was a lab here in Champaign. And so that was one of his first jobs. He learned how to develop slide film specifically and color film. He knew color and black and white as well. And so he always wanted to have his own darkroom. And he had a darkroom in a couple different locations, but then he was touring this old space that was available. And he said to the landlord, like, what's in that closet? And they opened it up and it was a dark room. And he was just like, what? So yeah, he's had that since 2017. So not too terribly long, but in 2020, around the pandemic time, obviously my job is to photograph gathering groups of humans. So a lot of my world shut down, as most people's did. And so I decided I'm going to start shooting more film again, and I'm going to learn. I did some film in high school, and we developed black and white, but I had never developed color. And so I was like, I'm going to shoot film and I'm going to learn how to develop it in my kitchen. And so I started doing that. And then I like put some on the internet somewhere, and he saw them and he's like, how are you developing your film? Blah, blah, blah. And then I came in, and chatted with him, and he basically was like, I'd love for you to help me out. And I was like, yes, I'm so into that. So yeah, it's like a passion project. It's called Urbana Museum of Photography. The museum portion used to be more robust because he's passionate about historic images and especially printing dark silver gelatin prints in the darkroom from old negatives. So every once in a while we'll come across some old negatives from an archive. And that was our last show. It was called Old News, and we got access to a box of negatives from the library that were all taken by courier staff photographers back in the probably around mid-century. And so we went through all these negatives and just picked out our favorites and printed them in the darkroom, where the very darkroom that they were developed in decades ago, which was super cool. And put on a show, and some of the photographers were still living and even came back to see it, or their family members, which was really neat. So that's like the museum portion, which hasn't been as active because we've been so busy actually developing film for people. So, and by we, I mean him. I'm pretty busy here being a mom and photographer, so I help out when I can, but Leosha, develops and scans mini rolls, I would say every day, for people in Champaign-Urbana who need their film developed. which has been really awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. I love that that I did not think that that's where the story was going to go, but like that is just so impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a very DIY situation where
Yeah.
we don't have anything fancy, but we get it done.
Yeah. No, that's so special, especially now when digital is just taken over.
Yeah.
Um so you said that you photograph on film as well as digital. So do you incorporate film in your client work?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in limbo about that. I think that obviously I love film. I'm passionate about it. I think it's wonderful in so many ways. I found that in the world of photography, there's almost a trend where like mediocre film photos are deemed as better than like really great digital photos. I don't know if you felt that at all, but the film people can be it's a bit of a pretentious world. Um, and so I don't want to be a part of it in that way. And so I haven't quite felt I'm not sure how to best do it yet. And like I said, I love film, but, and I'm speaking mainly because of what I see on Instagram, and maybe I just need to be on Instagram less, but
Yeah.
I have a community of photographers that we chat and check up on each other every once in a while. And there's one in particular who I think is freaking amazing and, big inspo for me. And she's said that she's had clients end up not hiring her because she doesn't shoot film. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I look at a lot of film. I would have thought her pictures were film and they're digital. So it's like, I don't understand that part of it. It's like it's such a trendy aesthetic thing, which is awesome. Again, I think it's great. It's coming back. But I don't want to really label myself as just a film photographer, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
kind of like doing it as a fun surprise. So for weddings, I'm not just going to straight up shoot a whole wedding on film if the couple has no idea. But what I've been doing, which probably isn't sustainable because it's very challenging to shoot on both, but I shoot digital, but then I also have a handful of rolls of 35 millimeter, and then sometimes I'll shoot some medium format too, if the couple specifically asks or cares about film, because some people don't care at all. They are just like, film digital, I don't know the difference. But some people do specifically ask, and in that case, I'll make a more an effort to shoot a lot more on film, which is really fun. I would love to, not experiment because wedding days are not for experimenting. But if someone said, "Hey, I want you to shoot this wedding completely on film," I would definitely do it. But it doesn't really sit right with me to try and label myself as just a film photographer. Because I think that incredible and impactful images can be made with either medium. Um, so yeah, I don't have a great answer for that because I mean, yes, I do shoot some film for clients, but I'm kind of in a doing both stage. And I do
Yeah.
see a lot of value in digital. Like when there's 5 kids running around so fast, I can barely even focus my digital camera on them. I can't imagine, you know, doing it all on my manual film camera. I know some people do, and that's amazing. But for me, I feel like I would miss some of the in-between moments that I can get with digital that I may not be able to get on film. And then likewise with weddings after dark. I don't I don't work with any flash on my film cameras other than a point and shoot, but I haven't implemented that yet. And I don't know if I will because I feel pretty confident about my digital setup with my flash for those or ambient
Right.
for the ceremony or reception images for a wedding.
Yeah. No, I love that you sound like you're in a very similar place to me. So, I really relate to everything that you just said. And there's a lot of value in what you said and like people hearing that perspective as well.
Thank you.
Um, what's coming up for you in the new year?
Oh man, honestly, I am just looking forward to not having much work in the slower months. I feel like I have quite a guilt complex in a lot of ways in my life, but I know that I'm not going to have much hired work in December, January, February, even March. And so I kind of went like balls to the wall with fall this year. and I think I stretched myself a little thin. So I had it's not even like I had a ton of weddings this year. They were just all concentrated into July and September for some reason. It just happened to work out that way. And so I remember in September saying, "Oh, this month's crazy, but October is going to be better." Then October, I said, "October's crazy, but November is going to be better." And now it's November, and I'm like, "This month is crazy, but December is going to be slower." So and I'm not trying to sound like I, have a ton of work. I really have a quite normal amount of work. It's just I'm also a full-time parent, so I have no free time with that amount of work. So I'm looking forward to, well, I've been saying that I'm not booking anything else this year, which has felt really good. And I feel like I'm in a good spot to not take anything else for the remainder of the year outside of what I have left, which is just a couple things. So in the new year, I look forward to making a photo book of my family from 2023, the year my son was born, and 2024. I've been meaning to do 2023 for a year now. Um, and then I look forward to being able to to kind of rest and then slowly pick back up on jobs that come. So I know for a fact I have a couple courthouse weddings, a few portrait things, but really I'm just kind of trusting that hopefully things come and it'll work out. But that's the weird thing about being self-employed is it's a lot of trust, and I try not to be too fearful, and I know I have a huge privilege by having a husband who also makes an income, so I need to make an income, but I'm not like, so scared about it I'm sick. I know that some work will come and I just have to hope and market myself, which I'm not the best at doing, that jobs do come. So yeah, the new year I'm looking for rest. I'm gonna redo my website. I'm working with a designer because I love art, I love design. Actually designing something myself is really challenging. So, and of course, you and I met through Rachel Larson Weaver's class. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from her class was how to structure sessions. So I would like to take a critical look at how I structure my session options. Um, of course, she does like a lot longer sessions, which I think is amazing. But mine are like my offerings are 30 minutes, an hour and a half.
Wow.
And I totally understand why to do a longer one because a lot of people can't really loosen up in that 30-minute window and feel vulnerable enough to be themselves. So I want to take a look at how I do that. And my hesitation when I think about that is, oh, but I know this family probably won't hire me anymore because they always like to just do quick and short and sweet and get it over with. But it's like, well, maybe in the long run, not doing the short and sweet, get it over with will result in more fulfilling work because it will be people that want me to truly just, you know, document a day in their life. So that's where I'm at. I don't know. What about you? How do you structure? It's so hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people listening, as well as myself, we do longer sessions, minimum, 3-4 hours,
Yeah.
and then full days. And yeah, there's so much value in people relaxing around you and melting into the environment, and the family or like in a wedding day, your couples probably get so much more comfortable with you by the end of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And whether alcohol is involved or not, but so I think that there's such a value to spending that longer time, and that I was just talking to somebody on a previous episode about how much more people are wanting this type of photography. They are wanting to get away from that aesthetically pleasing fakeness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not all fake, and posing isn't inherently fake, but just to show and embrace who they really are, and to trust a photographer to show up and make art through their family, I think
Mm-hmm.
is really starting to catch on. So I think you exploring that in the next year will be phenomenal, and hopefully people I'll let you plug your Instagram and website and all that in a second, but we'll find you and be able to follow you through that journey or help
Yeah.
you understand how they kind of structure their work or something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
so go ahead and plug your Instagram and website for me.
So my Instagram is just my name, Anna Longworth, ANNALONGWORTH, and my website's the same, just www.annalongworth.com. So, hoping to have a new website by late spring. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
I don't dislike my website now. I just haven't updated it in a long time.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Anna, for being with us today. If you had one thing that you want people to take away kind of from our conversation today, what would it be?
Um, I think I would just like to challenge people to look at their own lives and find the the beauty in those imperfect moments. Because it's really empowering and special. For example, every time I take photos of my child, I try not to like clean him up or
Mm.
put a different outfit on. I just let him be, whether he has a snotty nose or totally mismatched outfit, because I know one day I'm gonna be desperate to come back to these times and look at that. And yeah, I think it makes us, I think both photographing in this way and looking at our own lives, whether there's a camera or not, helps us be more, both live in the moment and be grateful for our, what we have, and like kind of like current nostalgia. It's like, oh, I love this so much. I know I'm going to miss it one day. So I have to just like take a moment and honor that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. It was great talking with you.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.